Have you ever started something that you thought would be a quick, simple little project and then it turned out to be a great big pain in the butt? Well, I've got myself into a little bit of a situation just like that. But before I show you what I've gotten myself into, I just wanted to give you an update on the pine that I was splitting up a few videos ago. So there is the finished pile. Some nice big splits of white pine for boiler wood. It ended up being a good size pile over here, added on to the rest of the pile. The pile of oak there that looked like a good amount is now looking kind of small next to that pile right there. I did not, however, split all of the pine that I had over here. So there are the logs that I have left, and I'm just gonna leave these. I'm gonna save those for runners to pile more logs on, like that pile over there that I need to clean up. Oh, and I did also pick up a couple of totes right here, and I put a message out to John at Frickin' Jeep, but he cuts these bladders in a certain way, and I think what he does is I think he cuts them like in half this way, and then that half ends up sitting on top better than if you just cut off the top the other way. So I don't know, I'm waiting to hear back from him on how to cut those bladders so that they fit better and are like a bigger top. Because I think, like I said, I think if you cut around the top like that, it doesn't quite fit, but if you cut around the bladder that way, like up and down instead of horizontal, then those two halves, they end up sitting on top of the tote better. I'm not exactly sure, but the other ones that I had, I always cut like in half diagonally, and I made the teepee, the pointed tops, and I don't want to do that with those. I do want to have a couple tote tops that are just flat. So I've got a couple more totes I'm going to go get from where I got those. So I'll end up with probably like four more, which would be nice. Just, it's always nice to have a couple more totes around for bringing wood up to the boiler. And bringing wood up to the boiler is where I got myself into not really a bit of a pickle. It's just like, it's one of those things where, I don't know if you're one of these people, but sometimes when I start something, it's going to be just a simple little task. And I start it, and then for whatever reason, I just keep going and I keep going. I get in way over what I had anticipated being part of the task. And so, you know, for whatever reason, well, I'll show you here. So here is where I drive my totes in for the boiler. And it was always a tight little squeeze. My tires would always end up rubbing on this little piece of the old foundation. So this shed was built on an old foundation that was here when I bought the property. So we utilized that foundation to build the woodshed here. But there was part of this foundation sticking out that always kind of hit the tires on both sides. So I wanted to just chip that off. So I got the jackhammer from Woodhound Senior and I started working on that. But then, for whatever reason, something told me I should dig out and see if I can just get to the bottom of the foundation and then break that out. And so that is what I ended up doing. Again, I don't know why, but I started digging, and then I dug this out, and then I took the jackhammer, and then I took this maul and used it as a sledgehammer, and I did end up breaking this big chunk out right here, and then that chunk right there. So I ended up digging underneath it. I got all the way down to the bottom. I broke all these chunks off, jackhammered all this stuff out. But then, right here, for whatever reason, there was a great big, I don't know, there must have been something built on top of this, because it was just a big chunk of cement that once I started breaking that out, it led to a great big rock in the cement, because this was built, I don't know, many years ago. And so back then when they mixed concrete up, they mixed in all this rock and everything into it, which ended up making it really really hard. But this piece over here broke off just fine. This piece I have left to try to break that off. And I'm starting to kind of work around the edge of it. But yeah, this started out being just a simple little task that I was going to knock a little bit off that edge. And this is what it's turned into. So I got all this rock and scrap to clean up. Oh, and I did, what's funny is when I was digging out the dirt here, I found this thing buried in the ground. And it almost looks like something that would go on a jackhammer. Like it almost looks like something from an old jackhammer or just an old, I don't know, chisel or something. But yeah, I found that buried down in the ground. So now I have this mess to clean up that I had zero intention of having. But I guess it might make it a little better for me to kind of redo this entrance into the shed. This foundation was sticking up a little high over here, and I kind of just had it where I would drive up and over it. Wasn't a big deal, but now that I busted that thing out, I think I'm gonna dig that out, or get that out of there, get all this stuff out of here, maybe get that thing knocked out. If not, that might stay there. I thought I'm gonna have to backfill this all in. And I think I was able to chip enough of that away now to where it won't be rubbing my tire when I drive in here. So there is my little project that started out as a simple little task and has just, for like I said, I started digging in that corner and then I dug out behind the foundation and I got down to the bottom and I'm like, oh, it's not that deep. So I started digging on the front here and then I started chipping that thing out and then I started swinging at that piece with the maul, with the hammer, and then I knocked that piece out, and then all of a sudden, an hour or so later, and I've got a gigantic mess that I had zero intentions of having. All right, so a few moments later, and check this out. All cleaned up. So I got that one big chunk out of there, and I ended up using the jackhammer a little bit more on the rock that was over here. I got that out and picked up all the other little pieces and then pushed all the dirt that I had over there back in. And it's not looking too bad. Still gonna have to fill it in because it's a pretty good depression there. It dips down quite a bit. The one thing I'm still contemplating and thinking about is removing this post or this beam altogether and like moving it down a little bit so that way I can drive in here. Come here. There's Harlow. He is Amanda's daughter's dog that I am watching today. And he likes to get into everything. He's 4 months old. Yeah, he is gonna be a big boy. But so I've been busy. He's been keeping me busy just because, like I said, he likes to get into everything. But anyway, so yeah, I've been thinking about taking this post out because with the bucket, I don't fit driving in here because the boiler sticks out a little bit that way. So like I said, I've been contemplating. If you've been following along, you know that this has kind of been a back burner project that I've been working on, trying to figure out. So I have considered if I don't remove that and widen this entrance up, what I could possibly do is drive in over here between these two posts and drive in kind of at an angle right towards that one. So I just kind of build the ground up here a little bit and I would be able to drive up in here with the tractor, kind of aiming right towards that post and then be able to dump. So I do run out of headroom down here, however. I don't have as much space to drive in, so I can't drive in as far coming in at an angle like this. So yeah, this has just been a back burner project that I've kind of been working on and trying to figure out You know, it'd be nice to be able to drive in here and dump wood. Bringing in the totes works fine as well. I just have to then put the, well, either way, I got to either put the wood into the bucket or the wood into the totes, I guess. So doesn't really matter that way, but the one thing I needed to get done to start with was just to knock that foundation down so that I could not be rubbing my tires of the tractor driving in. And then, like I said, if I do want to drive in with the bucket, I need to either move the boiler that way or take that out, or just leave that and then come in at an angle over there. So I got done what I wanted to as far as taking off the edge of that old foundation, so now I can drive in here with the totes a lot easier. I do have to fill this little low spot in, and then just continue deciding on whether or not what I want to do to kind of alter the woodshed here to be able to get a little more wood in at one time a little easier. The little thing that I started that turned into a great big thing is now pretty much cleaned up, so I'm glad I got that done.